Hello, everyone, and welcome. This is All Things Politics. I'm your host, Bub. Let's get right to it. Don Lemon speaks after being released from being arrested by the U.S. government over constitutional violations. Um, it should be no surprise to anyone what's going on, especially when it comes to speaking out against the Trump administration. This has proven to be very costly to some, well, not just journalists, but the American citizen. We have the situation with Alex Preddy in Minnesota, who was murdered by ICE agents, ICE/ Border Patrol agents, under the behest or authorization of the Trump administration. Not only that, but you also see that, or you see where in the country those journalists, those who report the news, are also at risk. Don Lemon and I think her name was Georgia Fort, were arrested after covering a story that involved a minister at a church in Minnesota who was also a member of the ICE organization, or was in control of directing ICE agents to certain areas in Minnesota. They covered the story inside of a church, and this is where the charges were filed, or these are how the charges landed against Don Lemon and Georgia Fort. As a result of this, the Trump administration took steps to arrest Don Lemon. It initially took some days, maybe a week or so, before they were able to get the paperwork correct, to have the paper done correctly in order to arrest him. He was arrested in Los Angeles a few nights ago, and he's just now speaking out on his channel, The Lemon Show, The Don Lemon Show. I have the clip. I want to share this clip so that we can hear what Don Lemon has to say about this whole thing. But before we do, I'd like to say we are in a state or stage in this country where constitutional rights are being violated, especially the First Amendment right, Second Amendment right as well. Fourth Amendment right is also being violated or not being respected, or held to the letter of law or what the Constitution dictates it should be. Don Lemon and Georgia Fort, I think, are just one example of what is wrong with this country in terms of speaking truth to power, that is, exercising your First Amendment right. That being said, let's get into this. I want to share this clip with you guys, and this is Don Lemon speaking on that issue that concerns him in his arrest by the United States government.
Yes, I think it was fantastic. By the way, I don't know anything. Like, I have not seen the news. I haven't seen anything. I did not know. I've been getting feedback from everyone about what has happened. I had no idea that all of this turmoil was going on. I just thought, like, it would be. I thought people would report on it, but not to this extent. So, thank you guys, and hit the like and hit the thumbs up because it does affect the algorithm. And more people become aware of our conversation and our show. And today is a really important one, and it's important for our democracy and to the Constitution of the United States, and what the amendment that I believe is the bedrock of our democracy, and that is the First Amendment. Freedom of speech, freedom of the press, freedom to peaceably assemble, all of those things. This encapsulates all of that. And I'm glad that, at least to the extent that it has, that people are realizing the critical moment that we're in this country, that our rights are under assault.
Great point he made just now. I did speak to that a minute or so ago. This country is attacking the fundamental constitutional rights of its citizens, and that being first, the First Amendment right, freedom of speech, freedom to assemble, things of that nature. Also under attack is the Second Amendment right, right to bear arms. Alex Petty is an example of that. And not just Alex Petty, but others. Others have been shot and killed who had arms or had the right to carry arms in the last month or so. There's also the Fourth Amendment right. I think there's a violation occurring there. And I'm pretty sure in the coming days that will show, we'll see that it'll be exposed that the Fourth Amendment right is also something that will be violated or be violated, disregarded altogether, especially by this administration. The Trump administration is at work in terms of not honoring the Constitution. Let's get back to Don Lemon, see what he has to say about this whole fiasco.
It may have started with people having their due process rights violated on the streets, violently violated on the streets. But now they're trying to silence journalists, and I will not be silenced. And I think journalists, obviously, I think journalists should not be silenced. I think this is a time, a very critical time for journalists in this country to stand up to this tyrannical administration. And
we got that reggaeton. Today, we're going to be making beats you guys send me.
Look, journalists are going to be, I believe they can be the folks that save us. I actually believe that artists will be the people that save us as well. And that's.
All right, let me jump in here. There are a couple of things he just said that I don't necessarily agree with. For no reason in the world would I think that journalists will save not just us, the citizens of the United States, but the Constitution. As we know, or as it should be understood and known, journalists are just employees of those who run the media corporation. You know, what they call the fifth estate, something, something related to that. But news outlets, corporations are ran by the super rich. These are Donald Trump's cronies. They do what he say. And any media outlet or journalist that does not toe the queue, he's going to come after them. That's one. The other is, I don't think that artists will save anyone in this country except for themselves. It's just what I think. And I say that because artists have always had, there has always been the platform available to artists to be the most outspoken in this country. And that means even more outspoken than our journalists. They have not fit the bill. They have not decided or considered speaking up for the rights of the people. Most artists now are selfish. They worry about one thing and one thing only, the dollar. Journalists, man, on the other hand, they don't worry about the people or how how they should report the news, because their careers is all that matters. So I don't know, Don might got that kind of wrong. I need to see the light in what he's saying in that respect. Hopefully he'll break that down for us. And if not, well, we may have to do an episode on that. Let's get back to Don. Let's see what else he has to say.
Why I'm here in Los Angeles is to cover the artists who are exercising their freedom of expression rights and creating fantastic music. And so I'll explain to you in a moment.
I need to know who those artists are. All Things Politics would love to know who these artists are who are supposedly speaking up for the rights of the people, who want to change the landscape that Donald Trump is trying to set into motion for us to, live upon. These artists, I need to know who they are. And if you have any idea who they are, please like, share, comment to All Things Politics, and subscribe, please. It would help this channel a great deal. Put those artists in the comments and let's see if we can get to the bottom of what their goals really are.
Moment would happen because I was actually covering, I had just been on the red carpet at the Black Music Collective, the Grammy Black Music Collective, and we were talking about the power and the importance of representation in music and black music. I had just seen Ketanji Brown Jackson. I just waved hello to her as she walked by. She didn't want to do an interview. I saw, you know, Pharrell and all of the wonderful artists who are contributing to what's good in this country, the very best. But so look, I have been, guys, a journalist for 30 years, if not more. I'm a man of a certain age. You know, I always say old people be knowing. And the only job or profession that is protected in the Constitution, I believe, and in the very First Amendment, is a job that I do, is a job that I have, and so many journalists around the world. So this is a moment for journalists, I believe, around the world. And I am so grateful to everyone who has voiced their support, who has put out statements, who has reached out to me, who has said, whatever you need financially, whatever support that you need. It has been overwhelming. And I do think right now that people understand that, again, this is a very critical time. And I hope that this continues, and to support not just me. If I can be the catalyst for or the inspiration for people to say, finally, stand up to the powers that be in our government, and also, quite frankly, having come from corporate media for a long time, to stand up to the gatekeepers, the corporate.
Okay, so now again, he said 30 years in the business, 30 years as a journalist, and I'm beginning to wonder if this is his very first time standing up for the Constitution. Well, more specifically, and he says this, it seems to be the only one he's concerned with, is the First Amendment. Don Lemon, if he has been a journalist / activist, this is my first time hearing about that.
Corporations that say, no, I am not going to bend the knee to this administration. I am not going to put on liars and insurrection deniers and election deniers. I'm not going to give my platform to those people. I'm not going to put people on television and give them a platform, people who come on just to lie and to offend and to insult people. It's insulting to the American people. This is not folly. It's not funny. This is not a game. If you look at any tyranny or any autocracy, any sort of dictatorship, the first thing they do is they get rid of the media. They try to silence the media. Ask Turkey about that, Erdogan. Ask Iran about that. Ask any country that has lost its way, that has been overtaken by a dictator. They get rid of the press first. And so we need to start standing up. And I got to say that from what I've heard, I haven't had a chance to see it. I've heard that my former colleagues at CNN all came out pretty unanimously, pretty strongly to support me. I understand. I believe that CNN released a statement. I've heard that CNN released a statement. Thank you very much. I have no animus for CNN. I have no animus for anyone, but I tell the truth as about what I see. And I think it's time for all journalists to stand up for each other. So I appreciate that. And
again, okay, I just said it. I think that journalists, for the most part, have to get it at a mindset that, I'm doing this for me, or I'm doing this for just the sake of journalism, and attach to or replace that mindset with the thought that I'm in journalism. I'm exercising my First Amendment right for the people and only for the people, not myself, not the network I work with, or my own, my ambitions. It should be about and only about journalism, the truth that supports the people, the truth that provides people with understanding, with knowledge. The journalism should be the voice of the people who don't have the voice of journalism. You know what I mean? That's how I see that. There's a lot of work to be done in all sectors of, society, but journalism is, I think, one of the very first professions that really need to be selfless and about the people. Journalists should be the people's voice, not the government's voice, not the huge corporations' voice, not the rich, but the people.
And at CNN, I worked with the best journalists in the world. So I wish them nothing but the best. But I believe those journalists as well need to stand up to the corporation. They need to tell Warner Brothers Discovery, stop playing and get your hands out of the newsroom. CBS needs to tell Paramount and David Ellison and whatever, get out of our newsroom. Get out of our journalism. Barry Weiss, take your hands off of it. Let the journalists be the journalists. All of them. That goes for every single corporate entity that owns a journalistic organization. Let the journalists be the journalists, because they're going to save our democracy if you just let them do it. The way to stand up to a bully, to a tyrant, is not to bend the knee. It's not to acquiesce. It is to metaphorically punch them right in the nose. And you need to introduce not only Donald Trump and the folks who work for him and his administration, but the corporate overlords and the gatekeepers. You need to introduce them to the word no.
Okay, I appreciate hearing Don say that, because I think that should be the objective, especially when it comes to journalists. I took a class in communications, and I think, I have a small understanding of how that should go. When they're in that field, that profession, again, that should not be about them or what media giant or conglomeration they can go work for, and they'll do anything to go and work for these corporations, especially these corporate media giants. Yeah, it's Donald Trump. It's Donald Trump and his cohorts who are trying to run roughshod over the Constitution. But more so, it is the journalists who, on a grand scale, do not understand what that job really entails. Or if they do, they don't have the stomach for it. So why are they journalists?
All the journalists, they cannot fire you. We were always taught, when I worked in corporate media, that the news is a star. That's bullshit. If the news was a star, everybody would have the same ratings. And everybody doesn't have the same ratings. The journalists are the stars. The people who are delivering the news, those are the stars. And the people who do it well, do well, they get the ratings and they get the respect. So it is, and actually having come from that.
Then that makes me think that journalism is about fame. If they're the stars, it's journalists. The news conglomerates, the news corporations should not be the stars, no more than the journalists should be the star. The people should be the stars. These are the ones the journalists should go to work for or to assist, as best they can. They're the stars. They're the ones that are going to prop them up, the journalists, to such a standard or, a level of respect and recognition based on how they do their job. I don't want to say or claim that a journalist is a star because he works for CBS, NBC, ABC, CNN, Fox News, any of that, I would like to know that the journalist I'm listening to is a journalist that understands what that entails, how to not only not bend the knee, but let that tongue go, man, let them words come out in defense of the people. That's what it's about. You get journalists now, they tell stories, feel-good stories, but most of them are directed toward or done for the super rich or the corporations. They speak highly of, okay, this corporation, that corporation's involvement in this or that project. It's going to help so many people when they're not telling the full truth, how the corporations not only underserve the people, big businesses, but they don't say that, okay, they're in it just for the money. Journalism or journalists have to understand that they have an obligation to speak truth to power. That's it. And it's not being, or it should not be, well, I'm speaking to become the star. That's where I think a lot of them make mistakes at.
Now I understand that what my star quality is, that is being honest and authentic and telling the truth. And I think that's, if everyone did that and they were not afraid of the powers that be, that's our motto. That's our mission. Just like a doctor, just like a lawyer, what we're supposed to do is hold the powerful to account and do no harm. And if you don't want to do harm to the American people, then stand up for democracy. Stand up for the First Amendment. So thank you so much, CNN journalists. I love you, Dana Bash. Thank you, Jake. Thank you, Aaron Burnett. Thank you to all of the people over at CNN who I like, and thank you to the management and to who I worked with forever for putting out a statement. And thank you to the folks on MSNBC. Thank you to Scott Galloway and to everyone. I got a funny note from Anthony Scaramucci just a moment ago, and he said, "We were on your show today, but you weren't there. You must have been busy." So I appreciate that humor, Anthony. But for so many people who have come on, look, I just want to tell you that. I also want to thank all of the folks who are, the foreign journalists who are in war zones, just everyone. Thank you so much. I mean, my heart I am overwhelmed. I haven't had a chance to read but a few texts from folks. I just got off the phone with my mom for the first time, and she was worried, and my nieces and my family in Louisiana. And look, I got to thank some people who came to my rescue, and that's my husband.
Okay, we'll end it there. No disrespect, man, for that last statement or comment, man. I just think that was enough. I was going to cut it off maybe 30 seconds before all that. But here we are in a situation where, okay, now journalists are beginning to understand that they are in the same boat as the people who they supposed to disseminate the truth to about not just this government, but the big conglomerates, the huge corporations, all those who actually truthfully behind the scene run the country and have the people in the state that they're in. That's the thing I think journalists need to understand. Good luck to Don Lemon. Hopefully this has sparked the flame in him to where now journalism becomes his mission to tell the truth and nothing but the truth to the people, to serve the people. That's what journalists should do. Serve the people with the news, the truth of it. All right. So again, good luck to Don Lemon. Like, share, comment, and please subscribe to All Things Politics. I'm your host, Bub. It's been a pleasure, man. Take care of yourselves and each other.